Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Adventures Calling Us, and we are doing a little bit of a sit-down because we want to do a review of our entire vacation. You might know we just got back from vacation about a week ago or so we've been kind of getting back into the swing of things, but we went on a fantastic trip. We flew all the way to Florida, went on a week-long cruise on the Mariner of the Seas, and then we spent about 4 days or so at Disney. So we definitely want to talk about our trip. But we didn't get a ton of footage, so what we want to do is we want to break this down into like a 7-part series. And so we're going to talk about 7 different topics. We don't want to do it all in one video. It would make for a very long and boring video. So we're going to break it up into 7 sections. And so I got to refer to my notes here, but we're going to talk about traveling tips. That's going to be the video today that we're going to jump into is some of our traveling tips. So we're going to break it into traveling tips, our overall feeling of the ship, as well as we're going to combine that with what our feelings were with the rooms, our dining experience on board the Mariner of the Seas and how it compares to maybe other cruises we've taken, the activities and shows. We want to talk about that as well. Lots to talk about there. And then we're going to break it down into the 3 stops. We went to the Dominican Republic, and then we went to Labadee, Haiti, and then we went to Perfect Day at Coco Cay. So we want you guys to join us for all 7 parts of this series. I think it's going to be very informational. We'll kind of give you our, kind of our point of view on it. I'm sure our experience might be different than others, but take it for what it's worth. So first, we're going to jump into our traveling tips. Now, caveat here, we have 4 children ranging from 16 all the way down to 4. So our traveling experience may not exactly be your traveling experience, and it is a much different experience when we travel with all 4 kids than it is when we travel with just Adeline, our 4-year-old, than it is when we just travel by ourselves, wouldn't you say? Mm-hmm. So, she agrees. You got to hear. You heard it here first. So we're going to talk about our traveling tips. Some of it, really, it's going to be geared towards with the kids, but really a few of these things you should really do even if you're traveling by yourself, right? So let's jump into it. Traveling tip number 1, and you've heard probably every, if you follow any kind of cruise vloggers or any kind of information for cruises on YouTube, you hear everybody say it. I know Matt from Royal Caribbean Blog says it all the time, but you always travel the night before, especially if you're flying in, right? So we live in Glendale, Arizona, which is kind of a suburb of Phoenix, right? Part of the Phoenix area. So we had to fly all the way over to catch our ship over in Port Canaveral. So we had to fly in the night before. We don't have to, but it's highly recommended, and we're going to talk about why. You never know what's going to go wrong with your flights. So let's talk about our flights in general, right? So we're flying from West Coast to East, so we lose about 3 hours right off the bat, right? So if you're flying from the West Coast to the East Coast, you're automatically going to lose time. So our flight was at 6 o'clock. 6?
I think it was supposed to take off a little after 7, I think, originally.
So our flight was going to take off around 7-ish, somewhere around there. So, of course, you want to be at the airport a couple hours early. So we kind of got up, got the kids up at 3:30, got to the airport around, just after 4 probably. Got to the terminal around 4:30 or so. So a couple of hours before our flight boarding time, and we were flying Delta, it was packed, right? I mean, it was just jam-packed. There was hardly a Delta agent around to help you. People were confused on what line to get in. And so this is why you get to the airport early, right? Well, what ended up happening is about an hour into checking in, we got a notification saying our flight was delayed. So, right, our flight was delayed, and our flight connected in Minneapolis. Yeah, so Minneapolis was our connection, but because our flight was delayed a couple of hours, we now were going to miss our connection in Minneapolis, which we did. So we were originally supposed to get into Orlando around 5:30 p.m. By the time we got to Minneapolis, missed our connection, got on another flight. We didn't get to Orlando until about 9 o'clock at night. And then we had to take a private car from the airport, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Private car from the airport, an hour to Port Canaveral to check into the hotel just after 10. So if we would have flown in the day of, like the morning of, and that would have happened, we for sure would have missed our boat. I mean, we would have never made the 4 o'clock, gangway up, and so we would have completely missed the cruise. So that's why it's super important that you fly in the night before if you're flying in. Even if you're flying from the East Coast, if you're flying in anywhere, you never know what's going to happen with the airports. Just fly in the night before. Spend the extra couple of $100 to get a hotel, just to make sure you spend a lot of money on your trip. You definitely don't want to, jeopardize it because you want to save another couple of $100, right, for a hotel, right? Just fly in the night before. So that is traveling tip number 1. Fly in the night before. You have anything to add on that?
No, I think you covered it.
Yeah.
No.
So always fly in. All right. So traveling tip number 2. What do we have here? Oh, this kind of goes hand in hand with the airports. One, if you can factor in, or if you can somehow look at how busy the airport's going to be. But our tip number 2 is if you can get TSA pre-check and breeze your way through security, do it. We have the American Express Platinum card. It gives us the opportunity to get pre-check, and then we've also got it for our other kids as well. That saves a ton of time. If the airports are busy and you can breeze through security, with pre-check, right? You don't have to take off your shoes. You're not taking anything out of your bags. You're pretty much just putting your stuff on the conveyor belt and walking through pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So TSA pre-check, it's a must for us. It's awesome. It's amazing. Another benefit with our card too, right, is we get access to priority lounges or American Express lounges, right? There's a whole plethora of lounges we can get into, right, with the card. So that helps too, right? So when you have to kill a couple of hours in the airport, you can do it in a lounge. They usually have free Wi-Fi. Some of them have actual food. We've been in lounges before traveling where they actually have a massage therapist. They've got showers. They've got, buffets. They've got it all. So, and you can, use an app to see what kind of lounges are out at the airports that you're going to. But certainly go and get TSA pre-check. That's tip number 2, pre-check if you can get it. Tip number 3 is choose your airline wisely.
Yeah.
Why?
And I think, wisely in the sense of with Delta, we had a lot of entertainment options on board. So when you're traveling, whether it's with kids or even on your own, there's movie options, game options, ways to keep yourself busy on the flight. So, and then I also think that the airline itself was, I don't know if it was roomier, but the seats were comfortable.
Yeah, it was weird. It was a really nice I don't know if it was just the airplane we were on, but it was super nice.
Both of them, the way there and the way home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. We don't usually fly Delta, but that was good.
Yeah.
Better than the check-in experience. The flight itself was good.
Yeah, and speaking of the check-in experience, though, the check-in experience, I don't know if it was just our Phoenix airport, but the other experiences at MCO and Minneapolis, all the agents, it was really well staffed. So I don't know what was happening in the morning at ours, but yeah, the airplane was super roomy. The seats were, even our kids, they were super comfortable. The games were cool. You could actually play, games with each other on your seat, or I guess on your screen, you can choose other people to play with. Funny fact, I actually invited Sarah to play a game with me, and I'm like, why isn't she accepting my invite? Well, I realized that I invited some total stranger in the back of the plane to play with me instead. So, but yeah, the movie selection was cool. They had some new releases. So it was, our kids enjoyed it, when they weren't sleeping, but it was awesome. It kept Adeline entertained. Even though she didn't really have headphones, she can watch Frozen or whatever it was. So yeah, the airline was super. Choose your airline wisely. We will never ever, no offense to you if you choose to fly these airlines, but we will never fly Spirit or Frontier. We've heard too many horror stories, and so. But if you fly them, I get their budget. Everybody's on a different budget. That's the other thing to consider. If you can, we used points to book our flights too. That's the other factor. Is our flights would have normally been about $3,700, right, for all 6 of us to fly. We were able to cover that with 100% of our points. So that's another factor as well. But we understand everybody's budget is different. And so, you got to do what's best for you. But if you can choose an airline that offers entertainment, free Wi-Fi on board, all those different things, it makes a heck of a difference, especially if you're traveling with kids. If it was just us two, I don't think it's as important. But if you're traveling with kids, right, it's important that you try to find, every parent knows this, right? Trying to entertain your kid on a 4-hour flight is hard when you don't have entertainment options. So, that's tip number 3. Tip number 4. Car seat and stroller rental. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we didn't opt to take our stroller with us this time. We took a car seat, but
Oh, I'll be right back actually while you're talking.
But we never used it. So we initially bought a car seat thinking that we were going to need it, and then come to find out, like, some of the transportation vehicles actually offer car seats when you book them. So some of the Ubers offer car seats, or some of the private cars. So we ended up buying one that we really didn't need, but we can use it for other grandparent rides and things like that in the future. And then the stroller, we took our stroller in every other vacation, but this last one we opted to rent a stroller, which it has its conveniences and inconveniences. So conveniences are that you don't have to take it with you and have another bag yet to carry or worry about. But inconveniences are through the airport. Obviously, you have to manage the child with no stroller. And then in our case, we had to return it early the day before we left, so we didn't have it the whole entire time because of when they needed us to return it. So that was kind of a negative, but
Yeah,
I would say not to probably take it if you don't have to.
the stroller. Yeah, I mean it was relatively inexpensive too. It cost us, I think, we did it for Disney only after the cruise, but cost us about $85 or so for the 4 or 5 days we were at Disney. The problem is, on the last day we had to return it at 5 p.m. and so that kind of was a hindrance because we still had to go to Disney Springs. But it was only about $85 for 4 days. It was well worth it for us to do that, not having to lug a stroller. But one of the things I want to show you, and we got this right before our trip, and I'm going to scoot you guys back here a second, but this right here, it looks like it's a backpack, but inside, this is a amazing car seat. So this is called the Wavy Peak. I don't know what this is called, Wavy something. But you see this car seat, it just folds out like this, and then boom, right? And then it's got a harness system, so you can't even see me, but it's got a harness system. And if you want to put it in the airplane, we didn't use it in the airplane, but I know some parents like to still strap their little ones in there. But it's got a cool harness system. It clips right in. It's got a tethering system as well to tether right into the vehicles. We did use this in our private car when we got to Orlando. We strapped Adeline into this, and then I think Sarah was saying from then on, anytime we got an Uber or something like that, Orlando actually offers and this is only about 8 pounds, guys. It is super light, and we got this because we thought we were going to have to actually take it to SeaWorld when we went. And we were going to have to carry a car seat with us, which would have been inconvenient. But Orlando is actually one of few cities that actually offers car seats in their Ubers. And so we opted, when we got an Uber after the fact, we ended up just getting Ubers with car seats and made it super convenient, right? But yeah, if you can leave some of these things at home and you don't have to carry them because they are a lug and you got to store them, certainly you're definitely going to want to leave them at home if you can. Obviously, if you have an infant, something like that, it might be more difficult. We understand that. I mean, we first traveled with Adeline when she was four months old. So, I mean, you talk about taking luggage, right? I mean, we had everything. So we understand it. Everybody's situation is different. But if you can avoid it, yeah, please do. Final tip is do factor in, speaking of Ubers, please factor in, especially when you're flying into Port Canaveral, or not Port Canaveral, when you're flying into MCO, you got to factor in the shuttles, private cars, Ubers, taxis, whatever you're going to do. Before we left, we researched everything, and we tried to find a shuttle that would take us from MCO all the way to Port Canaveral. Now, our situation is a little different. We have 6 people, so we're multiplying every cost by 6. So you have to do the math on this, right, to see what's going to work best for your family. So a couple of things we did. So we took a private car service, so like a limo, not a limo, but like a limo executive car service, for 2 reasons. One, by the time we factored in the shuttle cost for all 6 of us, it wasn't much different than the executive car, the SUV that took us over to Port Canaveral. 2, we wanted to make sure when we got into Orlando that we were able to get over to Port Canaveral without having to wait for a whole bunch of other shuttle riders. That's the issue with the shuttles, is sometimes you're waiting for other people to land on their flights, and we didn't want to have to wait. And then 3, we just, for us, right, we needed an SUV. We wanted something comfortable for our family to drive in. to get over there. We wanted to just get there as quickly as possible. So that's why we chose this service. Now, the only caveat to that is I will tell you on the way back from Orlando when we stayed at Disney, we did take a shuttle there, and we can talk about that in a different video, but we took a shuttle from there, and it was significantly cheaper to get back to the airport from there, but that's because of the distance and everything like that. So, but yeah, you got to factor in the executive car cost us about $250 to get from Orlando to Port Canaveral. Then we had to pay $250 basically from Port Canaveral to our Disney Art of Animation Resort. So right there is already $500 in fees for a car. So we even looked at renting a car one way. That didn't work out. It was going to be just as much to rent a car one way because we need a minivan, right? Because we have so many people. We can't get away with just getting a little sedan, right? You might be able to get away with a sedan, one-way trip to the port, something like that. Our family dynamic being 6 people, there's only so many options that we have because of the size of the family. We had 7 pieces of luggage, right? We had a whole bunch of stuff. So, you just factor that in when you're going. Make sure you factor in the ride shares when you're going. That is part of your overall budget for your trip. So, those are our 5 traveling tips. I'm sure there's a lot more tips out there. Those are the 5 when we sat down and said, what kind of went wrong? What could we have done better? What are the things that kind of hindered us during our trip a little bit? Going back to the TSA pre-check thing, the lounges, that really helped out in a couple of the airports, right? When you're sitting there or in a layover or something like that, right? So, but yeah, think about all of those different things when you're traveling. There's a bunch more tips, but we just wanted to kind of go over our top 5 that we thought of, right? That we could think of when we were kind of recapping our trip, so to speak. It was a great trip overall. I mean, it was an amazing trip. The kids really enjoyed the cruise, and everybody loved, of course, going to theme parks and things of that nature. And so it was a good trip. But getting there is the first step. In the next video, we're going to talk about kind of our overall thoughts of the Mariner of the Seas, compare it to other cruise ships we've been on, and kind of go over the rooms. This was the first time we had connecting rooms, so we'll kind of talk about that and the pros and cons and all of that stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next video, so please come back and watch that with us as well. That's going to do it for us tonight. It is about 8:10 here, which means it's about our bedtime, people, okay? We are 40 and we are old, and we'll go to bed probably in about an hour, but we put Adeline to bed, and now we're just gonna relax for the rest of the night. So glad you're watching. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. We really appreciate it. I think we're on our way to 500 or 600 subscribers, which is awesome. I think our next goal is 1,000. Actually, no, let's make our next goal 500, which is, I think we're about 10 away, and then we'll hit 1,000. So so we'll go from there. But thanks for joining. We appreciate it. Keep watching. We love you. Thanks for the support. And Sarah one day is going to pick up the camera and just lead a vlog somewhere.
No.
She's just going to pick up the camera and just lead a vlog. You guys might wonder why she's never in kind of the update videos. Or she's really not one to get in front of the camera too much. So to get her to do this is amazing. But people love you, I bet. Comment down below if you want to see her in more videos. If you love my wife and you want to see Sarah in more videos, comment down below. Yeah. And then if this video gets 10 likes, we'll have Sarah do her own vlog. 10 likes. 10 likes, people. 10. Give me 10, baby.
That's not enough.
Okay, wait. How many likes?
Now
you got to. We're not at 500 subscribers yet, so you got to make it a fair number.
What's fair?
50?
10.
50?
Yeah.
Fine. That ain't gonna happen. But 50 likes, and she'll pick up a camera and she'll vlog. But thank you guys for watching. We love you, and we hope to bring you guys some more content. I'm gonna start bringing the news updates again tomorrow, so stay tuned. And we love you. And have a good rest of your night, morning, afternoon, whenever you're watching this. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.